How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. I don't get it.
What do you mean you don't
This
get it?
patriotic superhero feels like propaganda run amok.
How is it propaganda run amok? It's Uncle Sam.
Why are we doing Uncle Sam?
You mean despite the fact that he's America's uncle, he's got a history dating all the way back to the War of 1812, and the original run of his story was done by Will Eisner?
Yes, despite those things.
It's a request video.
You don't have to do every request.
No, it's fine. This is a request video, and we are doing Uncle Sam. Now, I do have to admit that the only Uncle Sam that I knew of in the comic books were part of the Freedom Fighters. I believe it's the Freedom Fighters that were part of DC comic books. I did not know that he had history that was far beyond that in the DC comics. I know he had a couple of appearances here and there. I mean, it's Uncle Sam. Why wouldn't he make appearances with other patriotic superheroes? But I didn't know the extent of his appearances from Quality Comics, National Comic in Quality Comics. And he actually had two comic books that were running at the same time. He suffered a fate that a lot of patriotic superheroes did after the war. I mean, Uncle Sam is always going to be a staple. I mean, he's even had posters of him come out today. But his superheroing in the comic books suffered from a lot of patriotic superheroes, which Captain America and the Shield. Well, the Shield was a different thing. He was pushed up by RG. But it was like with Captain America, after the war was over and you were no longer fighting the Japanese and the Nazis, you started going after American criminals, street-level thugs, which didn't spark the patriotic spirit as much as the war did. So Uncle Sam fell into that same category. Now, he did exist longer than a lot of other Golden Age superheroes that were patriotic themed for obvious reasons. It's Uncle Sam. So let's go ahead and cover a little bit about Uncle Sam. We'll actually, before we get started, we'll go ahead and do a history lesson where we will cover not in great detail, but enough that you'll know the creation of Uncle Sam and where it actually came from. And then we'll do a little bit about where he appeared in the comic books before we cover his first issue in National Comics, where he makes his debut appearance, where he would actually be in Quality Comics for a good bit of time. The idea of Uncle Sam is never going to die away. He is America's uncle. But his run in the comic books, it's probably never going to go back to the level as it was in the Golden Age. So let's go ahead and cover this.
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. I don't get it.
It doesn't matter if you get it or not. It is what we're doing. Let's get started with Uncle Sam. Okay, so let's go through a quick history lesson of the creation of Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam, real name is Uncle Sam. The term for him was first created in 1812, but they didn't come up with the conceptual art until 1852. The person behind the creation of the symbol was essentially Sam Wilson. Now, the conceptual art came out in 1852, and he didn't die until 1854. So he may have actually been around the artwork of it. There's not enough evidence saying that he was, but there's also not enough evidence saying that he wasn't. So we're just going to go and say that he was. Now, he was a meat packer, and back in the War of 1812, he was giving supplies to the U.S. troops. Now, on the shipping containers, he stamped U.S. on the side of it, which obviously meant the United States. Now, there was a soldier who naively asked, what did the U.S. stand for? Duh! But another soldier was being snarky about it and said it came from your Uncle Sam. since Sam provided it, he was being snarky about the U.S., and the term Uncle Sam actually stuck. Just like the terms of Yankee Doodle stuck, and Columbia being, the Lady Liberty with the flowing robes. Now, the final creation for Uncle Sam was done by a couple of artists over the years, and they did an amalgamation to where they came up with the Uncle Sam that we have today. Now, the finalized appearance, the one that we actually have, came from a artist known as James Montgomery Flagg, and he died in 1960. He came up with this Uncle Sam that you see here in the posters, but the original poster that we all know, "I want you for the U.S. Army," did not say that at first. The original captioning is, and I found the only one that I could, "What are you doing for preparedness?" And that was what we used before the before World War II, which it would change to a propaganda piece for "I Want You." Now, the "What are you doing for preparedness?" I think they said it appeared on 4 million posters, but even I didn't know this before doing the research, but that was the original thing. Since then, the amalgamation of all the creators, with the final version being Flagg, has appeared in many things over the world: political cartoons, animated cartoons, maps, illustrations. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody out there born in the last 20 years, maybe not, but anybody before the last 20 years, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in the world who doesn't know who Uncle Sam is, and if they did not know his name directly, would be familiar with the poster. They've used this poster in many different things in many different ways, but the most famous and the most iconic, "I want you for the U.S. Army." So he has appeared into a number of publications over the years. So let's go over some of the appearances and some of where he appeared and what he did. I think that the DC Comics is where he's gotten his most appearances in part of the Freedom Fighters, but he did have most of his appearance in National Comics through issue 1 to issue 45. So we'll cover that, and we'll go over some of these other comic books that he appeared in. No Project Superpowers at the time that it came out. He was still under DC, which I don't know what that would have done for the comic, considering it took place all over the world, but it would have been interesting to see Uncle Sam with the other patriotic superheroes. So let's go ahead and cover some of his appearances. Now, Uncle Sam did not have a lot of appearances outside of his appearances in Quality, which is a lot, and we'll cover his first appearance in the like. He did appear in a couple of the Yankee comics where he was given Yank and Doodle their missions. And I covered that when I covered Yank and Doodle, so you can see where Uncle Sam makes his appearances there. He also made an appearance in Novelty Press. It's the comic book where Target was their main feature. Now, he appeared in the first couple of pages, and you see him doing a roll call of all of the heroes, but even though they try to make it look like the heroes are working together, they didn't. Like I've explained in other videos, these heroes are usually in their own self-contained universe, and they're the only ones. Crossovers were very rare in the Golden Age. Now, after we do the roll call, there's this whole page where you see Uncle Sam giving the other people their missions, but he never gave them the same mission. Now, here's the page here. Uncle Sam assigns each one to his post, telling Target he is to unearth foreign plots. Space Hawk is to patrol the stratosphere. White Streak is to hunt saboteurs. Lucky Bird, continue your work. You can see how he gives each one of them their tasks. Now, the stories and the heroes would just continue like they normally do. I believe that Uncle Sam was just thrown in there as a propaganda piece. Even only 2 of the stories even mention Uncle Sam. Target does come out and say directly, "I'm glad to be working for Uncle Sam." And only one other comic even acknowledges that they're doing any work for Uncle Sam. So that is, like I said, I believe it was just a propaganda piece, keeping people interested in the war. The storylines that they're set onto by Uncle Sam do last for a couple of issues. It's like right here, Target says, "We're glad Uncle Sam has asked us to give a hand. We've always been after criminals, and anyone who tries to steal away our liberties is the worst kind of thief. Dave, Tommy, and myself are right behind you, Uncle, to rout the rats who bore from within." Now, they don't make a big to-do about how they're working for Uncle Sam, and none of the other characters mention it in their stories. But that's how he appeared in the Quality comics. Now, there was something called Rails Across America that appeared in 1955, and that's, I guess you could say that's skating the edge of the Golden Age. I've always said that the Golden Age ended earlier than that. Basically what happens is Uncle Sam pops up and sees a young man, and he starts giving us the history of the railroads up to that point. Because he couldn't tell us the future past 1955. That would be massively prophetic. So that's his short appearances in some of the other comic books. Let's cover the large amount of stories that he had in Quality Comics. A number of them was done by Will Eisner. Now, it is not unusual for Will Eisner to do comic books in the Golden Age, but him doing the patriotic comics seemed a little different and out of his wheelhouse. He liked doing more, well, he did a lot of different things, like the Flame, the Dollman, and the Spirit, which he actually was able to keep the rights for the longest time. He didn't do all of the Uncle Sam comics. About halfway through, another artist took over. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll cover all of this. There were 2 comic books printing Uncle Sam stories at the time. Uncle Sam Quarterly and I think it was Nation comic books, National comic books, which I mentioned earlier. He was in issue 1 to 45. Now, he wouldn't appear as the featured cover and the featured story for all of these. In fact, he was the featured cover and the featured story all the way up to number 41. Now, from 42 to 45, he was relegated to the middle of the comics, not even mentioned on the covers. I mean, it almost seemed like an afterthought that he was even in those issues. Now, the Uncle Sam Quarterly had a number of Uncle Sam stories, which I don't believe any of those came out of National Comics. But at an end of a lot of those stories, they even, promoted their own comic. Read more Uncle Sam stories in National Comics. So either it was stories that were supposed to be in the comic where they had so many that they put them in the Uncle Sam Quarterly, or the Quarterly was to promote that. Now, since some of the later episodes or issues of the Uncle Sam Quarterly, they had other heroes appearing as well. So let's go ahead and cover his first appearance in Quality, and we'll go a little bit over the Quarterly comics as well. Uncle Sam, real name, Uncle Sam, first appeared in National Comics number 1. Creator is the comic is Quality Comics, created by Will Eisner. Page 1, a nice splash page here. I'll go ahead and read this page. Uncle Sam. In 1776, a new but tattered flag was hoisted over the 13 free states. A free spirit was born, a spirit that grew until 48 states became united under one flag. Out of the spirit, like a guiding father, came Uncle Sam, as America's fondly named him, to watch over the destinies of growing America. He carries the flag in the Civil War. Pleased with the North and South finally settled their differences, and the states were again united in the trenches in 1917, fighting to preserve the principles of democracy. And once again, 21 years after Americans have shed their blood so that the system of government offering freedom, equality, and the pursuit of happiness may be preserved, the forces of evil, greed, and intolerance and crime threaten the very ideal out of which America's greatest chapters are born. Now, for the first time in history of comics, the great Uncle Sam joins the war of crime, evil, and injustice. Now, considering how long of a history they have with Uncle Sam, and they're saying that he's been around for a while, I don't think he was a real person. I think he was just something born out of idealism, but he is here. Okay, we start off showing how a lot of Americas are becoming disenfranchised and losing jobs because it's like the farmlands are becoming dusty and unusable. So as they're trying to move for better prospects, they are stopped in certain areas because the other Americans don't want them intruding onto what they already have. And they're starting to build up like these homeless camps. And this one guy sees an opportunity. A smart man could use the crowd. They're better enough to fight for anyone. So he gets two of his men, Sneal and Scar. He tells them to get them all ready and prepare them to be a fighting force to fight for us. He even talks about how he wants the dictator of this army, kind of. He's like, I could name you 3 dictators with a following smarter than that. Scar, set this up for us. Now, he says that he's going to get money and supplies ready while he has these 2 guys rally up the forces. So they start speaking propaganda about how they're disenfranchised and they should fight back for their freedoms. Dictatorship must replace democracy, is what he's saying. So he rallies everybody together and they soon become the Purple Shirts. Then we cut over to, but the mockery has Ace Defender. Ezra Smith speaks. Ezra Smith. Not to be confused with another Ezra that we all know. Now he's speaking out against the dictatorship, talking about how the only true freedom is democracy. Which is funny because Winston Churchill once said that democracy is the worst form of government besides all of the others. So the 2 men on part of Cobra's side, Cobra was the guy trying to rally, wanted to be in charge of the army. These 2 guys go over and they attack Ezra and try to convince him to stop speaking out against democracy. He fights back and then gets shot in the back. His kid Buddy runs off and finds himself in the desert. He starts crying because all of this is weighing on him so heavily that he cannot take it anymore. And then we see a bubble with musical notes in Yankee Doodle, which means that Uncle Sam is whistling Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle went to town, if you know that. And he comes over and says, now, little man, you're not really crying. Men don't cry, you know. Tell your Uncle Sam all about it. And then he talks about how he is everyone's uncle. And he is going to help Buddy out. And as they're standing there, a giant boulder cracks him on the head. And he turns around and he's like, who did that? Gosh, that rock must have weighed a ton. It bounced off him like a pebble. And we found out that this was Sneal who had done this. And Buddy tackles him, and Uncle Sam starts questioning him and does let him go. Because I don't think that Uncle Sam killed anybody. I mean, he definitely didn't in this issue. So the Cobra starts talking to Scar, and he's like, I want you to bring these guys to the fortress, and we'll start mounting our campaigns. Sneal walks in, and Scar shoots him because we don't want a weakling in the purple shirts. After he tells him about Uncle Sam and how he's afraid of him. So all the troops end up coming to the fortress, and Scar starts talking to Cobra, and he says, but Cobra, it looks like foreign-made equipment, and these troops, they're foreigners too. And he says, that's right, we did get people from the foreigners, and they'll aid us with troops and money. At that time, it says, meanwhile, if what you're telling me is true, the camp needs looking into. Gosh, Uncle Sam, you sure can run fast. So it looks like Uncle Sam is durable and fast, and we're about to find out that he has incredible strength. He confronts the purple shirts and starts to beat them up. One cracks him on the head with a rifle, and it breaks. And then in the next scene, we see him holding up this car with two soldiers with one hand. Where's my hat? Here it is, Uncle. Yeah, he keeps losing his hat because his hat's not super durable. They run into Sneal, who didn't actually die yet, and he says, thanks, Scar and Cobra, the chief, they're in the Box Valley Big Fort. So they find out where the purple shirts are at. Meanwhile, the president is on his yacht, and the purple shirts have, two big planes that land right next to the yacht, and they kidnap the president. And one of the planes is one of those helicopter airplanes that we keep seeing come around in the Golden Age comics. As the president gets escorted into the fort, Cobra talks to him and says, we merely wish to show you the beginning of the new military power. Your democracy, Mr. President, is doomed. These men are trained troops. And about that time, Uncle Sam approaches the camp and starts taking... he takes down one troop and then let himself get captured. And then Buddy runs off to the army headquarters and let them know everything that's going on. Uncle Sam, confronted with the purple shirts, finds out that he has the power to rally Americans with a rousing speech. And as he does, the Americans in the purple shirts start fighting off the foreign troops in the purple shirts. He says, the fate of freedom depends on you. And then we see the purple shirts fighting with each other, and Uncle Sam finds the president. You can't open the door barehanded. The lock is welded steel, opens only by electricity. So Uncle Sam pulls and says, well, I'll be if I didn't pull the whole thing out, concrete and all. As he's freeing the president, the army arrives and starts opening fire on the fortress. And then Uncle Sam decides that the best exit is through a random wall. He busts out of the wall. And as they're running away, bullets are flying, and he catches the bullets in midair. And his hat gets knocked off. Tells the president to keep his head low. Gets the president to safety and starts rushing back towards the fortress. And there shows his hat being blown off again. And explosions happening around him as he's just running through. He breaks through a wall. Just one moment, gentlemen. The government wants words with you. Mercy, give me a break. You'll get a break. A fair trial is more than your kind of government would give you, a traitor. He tells everybody that they can stop firing. The war is over. They take down the purple flag, the purple shirt's flag, and hoist up Old Glory. Here's your hat again, Uncle Sam. Here's your hat, Uncle Sam. Thanks, buddy. And with that, they both rush off. Look at him run off before I can get a picture. Probably a publicity stunt. Really? This guy is grabbing bullets out of midair, running headlong into opening fire, busting through the walls, saving the day, and you think he's a publicity stunt? What kind of jackass are you? The guy in charge of this current army says, I wonder, I have a feeling he's real as you and I. Yeah, he just made things happen. He stopped the purple shirts. Of course he's real. God, the people in this force got to be smarter than this. And then Uncle Sam goes ahead and breaks the fourth wall. Well, readers, it appears I have an assistant who will share my adventures, and I'll bet right now there will be plenty. I bet right now there will be mighty exciting ones. Follow the adventures of America's greatest comic hero, Uncle Sam. And as far as I know, the artwork for Buddy does seem to fluctuate, but I think he appears in all the Uncle Sam issues. It's kind of weird for Uncle Sam to have a sidekick, but it's there. I mean, it's like what sidekicks were basically needed for in the Golden Age. Sounding board, someone to rescue, offer a little bit of assistance, make us feel like we're part of the hero's adventures by us identifying through the sidekick. Okay. Now, Uncle Sam would go on to fight foreign and domestic terrorists. A lot of the stuff took place in America, where he would be actually taking down Nazis and Japanese saboteurs, and you could tell the difference because the Nazis and Germans always talked with the V, and the Japanese or Asians, anything Oriental, would always be represented in yellow. It was very racist back then, but that's just the way it was. He didn't always fight just terrorisms. He fought, I guess you could call them street level thugs, a couple of mad scientists, but he was always fighting for the ideals of America. Now, here's some pictures here. He is bulletproof, and he is incredibly strong. He also was making sure to sell war bonds. That was one of the big things that not just with patriotic superheroes. Everybody was pushing war bonds back then. It was for the war effort, like why many Golden Age comic books were destroyed back then, because they were taking the metal staples out of these comic books to use the metal for the war effort, which the amount of metal you're getting from a staple is negligible. He promoted another comic book in his comic, which that is not something I've ever seen before. I've often seen the tune into another issue where they're not in the comic book anymore, but him promoting Plastic Man and Police Comics, which is part of Quality, but that's unusual to see a publication advertising another publication. Now, near the end of his run, this is the weirdest one. The last publication I could find in National Comics, Good Neighbors, yes, North Americans, South Americans, Central Americans, they're all Americans and all can count on the friendship and help of Uncle Sam. Trying to say that North American, South, and Central Americans were all Americans, that I don't know who came up with that idea. They may be called America, but they're not what we would classify as Americans. You know what I'm talking about. I guess, I don't know what they were trying to promote when they said that, but they did show Uncle Sam over there, all the Americas are united. I don't really know how I want to go into that. So that's the appearance of Uncle Sam in Quality Comics. He did have the 2 publications, and the Uncle Sam Quarterly was promoting him in National Comics. Now, having a superhero advertise himself that he's appearing in one comic to the other comic book, that has been done before. But him advertising for Plastic Man, that's not something I've ever seen before. There was an origin story, I believe in issue 4. It's a ridiculous origin story, not by the history lesson that I gave you, trying to show that Uncle Sam has existed even before the War of 1812, and his spirit would combine with those people named Sam who tried to uphold the qualities and idealism of the United States throughout the years. I guess they wanted to give him one, so you can't say he didn't have an origin story like so many Golden Age characters. Now, Will Eisner wouldn't do the entire run of the Uncle Sam comics in Quality. By issue 28, it was taken over by Al Gabriel. Now, in number 27, he is not, his signature is not given to the start of the story, but I do still believe it is a Will Eisner story, because if you look at this page right here with the guy up against the sign, that is a classic kind of a scene that you would get from Will Eisner. That is the kind of, I mean, this picture, it says so much, just the picture itself. That's the kind of thing that you would get from Will Eisner, even though I can't find his name anywhere on here. So I do think that he still did issue 27, even though he's not credited with it. And then Al Gabriel would take over the Uncle Sam comics up until the last issue in 45. Now, in the Uncle Sam Quarterly comics, most of the stories would involve Uncle Sam. Yeah, imagine that. In fact, I think that at least the first 2 issues were nothing but Uncle Sam stories. In the later issues, some other stories would appear in there too, either one-shots or just a few pages, but mostly Uncle Sam stories. William Eisner and Al Gabriel did do a number of stories for the Uncle Sam Quarterly. Some other artists got in there as well. Now, a number of these stories were actually uncredited. Now, Will Eisner and Al Gabriel would definitely get their names in on the stories that they did, but I could not find artists that were credited with some of these later stories. I don't know if their names might have been taken off due to the site that I'm with, or if there just were no names on them at all. Like with number 27, how I mentioned that there is no artist name, but it looked like a Will Eisner drawing. Like I said, there's no way of telling who the artists were for some of these. They just don't have an artist name. But if you know some Golden Age artwork, you might be able to connect them with someone. But we're just going to go with uncredited. So the Uncle Sam Quarterlies, being at the same times, issues 1 through 8, really did expand how many more Uncle Sam stories there were. There wasn't just the 45 plus the 8. Like the first issue itself, I believe, had 8 stories, 7 to 8 stories. So even if you only had, 45 plus 8 makes 53, there's more than 53 stories. So if you ever have a chance to get part of the Uncle Sam Quarterlies, or ever get a chance to read them, they'll give you more stories of Uncle Sam and his psychic buddy. Okay, well that's basically Uncle Sam. So strong, durable, constantly losing his hat, but always wearing the same uniform and standing up for the ideals of America. God bless America. Okay. Well, I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned a little bit about Uncle Sam. I love doing request videos, especially when I learn something that I did not previously learn. And I did learn some stuff in this video. So if you want to see more superheroes, keep those requests coming. Like and subscribe. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.